Mother Horse Eyes, an enigmatic creator spinning a fractured narrative where humans engage in psychedelic child experimentation to create living vivisections of people with still functioning organs for the purpose of constructing a portal flesh interface. What unholy, nonsensical series of words did I just string together? And what does it even mean? What cold-hearted monster would name a human child Jingles? All this and more on In the Horse Eye. April 2016. Cryptic comments Lovecraftian in nature begin appearing across Reddit. These comments describe, among other monstrosities, portals known as flesh interfaces, miles-deep throats exhaling putrid air from out of the ground, people, including children, being experimented on with psychedelic substances, humans cut in perfect cross-sections with all of their organs still working visibly from the outside, and a child who, quote, bleeds, sweats, and pees LSD. All of these comments originated from one account by the name of _9mother9horse9ice9. This person would seemingly respond to regular posts with comments that sound like they're from another dimension filled with eldritch abominations. For example, in a thread from r/funny, when another commenter mentioned Dubai, Mother Horse Eyes had this to say: Dubai probably has the highest rate of free-floating non-interface incidents of any major metropolitan area in the world. In one incident, a large group of migrant workers was segmented in an underground facility. Perfect cross-sectional segmentation along the frontal plane. You could see their lungs working, food being digested, blood pumping on the inside of the heart, everything. They lived for almost 5 months in this condition. Absolutely fascinating to see in person. There was also a group of school children who were very slightly segmented, just the ends of fingers and bits of the calves and such. Hardly fatal wounds, yet they all died within 2 months. Some showed signs of intellectual mutation. There are no known flesh interfaces in Dubai. However, it is surmised that the architecture is actually based on interface geometry and carries some latent interface-like power. Mass segmentations remain one of the most mysterious aspects of these interfaces. They seem to show that these interfaces do indeed concentrate on flesh, living up to their name. The way Mother presents this otherworldly information feels like they're just referencing a well-documented curiosity, a phenomena so alien expressed so casually. Over a few days, the tone of the commenting slowly mutated from casual references to flesh interfaces and segmented people to intense first-hand accounts from multiple people that sound like they're straight out of a cosmic nightmare. For example, in a different comment, Mother Horse Eyes paints yet another existentially terrifying scene from behind the eyes of an American soldier in Vietnam. The soldier writes, "Until we found the village, we had suspected that the detectors were just props. Just toys given to us by the CIA to reassure us. 3 days through the jungle and these detectors had not detected a f***ing thing. But before we even saw the first hut, the needles on all the detectors started moving in unison. If they were phony toys, it was a cool little special effect. The needles swayed back and forth and all the little metal boxes let out this spooky ooh-ah, ooh-ah, ooh-ah sound all in unison, like a school choir. Very weird. We turned them off. As instructed, we treated every person as combatants and killed them all. There wasn't any resistance though. A few had weapons, but most were unarmed. None fought back. They didn't even run. They were just sitting around, lazing in the sun, and we shot them where we found them. Grim work, and very weird. That probably spooked us more than the detectors. It was like they were waiting to die. After we cleared the village, we didn't know what to do. We turned on one of the detectors and wandered around to see what was up. The detector started going nuts around one of the bigger huts in the middle of the village. We had already cleared it, but we went in again. There was a big altar inside, with candles and Buddhas and gold signs with writing and shit. We figured maybe one of the Buddha statues was setting the detectors off, but no. The hut was very hot and muggy, even by the incredibly humid standards in Vietnam. It was incredibly humid in there. Even the Buddha statues were sweating. Their faces were literally coated with drops of moisture. Everyone noticed that there was something weird going on with the air. There was something off about the pressure, so we just tossed everything. Picked the shit up and tossed it out of the big hut. Sure enough, when we picked up the big platform that held the altar, there was something under it. It was a pit made of flesh, maybe 5 feet across and going down about 20 feet before curving out of sight. When I say made of flesh, I mean it looked like the inside of somebody's throat. Wet, reddish, flesh-looking stuff. We had heard of them building tunnels, but we really couldn't even understand what we were looking at. It was breathing. the flesh kind of rippled, this hot air came out, and it felt and smelled just like somebody was breathing right on your face. Enough to make you sick. They told us we would know it when we saw it. Well, we saw it, and we knowed it. We radioed the coordinates and got the fuck out of there. When users saw these comments, they were puzzled to say the least. Throats extending miles into the ground, flesh interfaces, segmented humans, what does it all mean? Where did it come from? It wasn't until they started digging around through Mother's account history that they began to put together the context behind the cryptic and frightening writings. People shared information and tried to find out what exactly these comments mean, and they began to piece together a story. The world MHE describes follows a few key narratives that I could find on Wikipedia. The one we're attempting today follows humanity's attempts to create, understand, and control interdimensional portals with the form of tunnels lined with human flesh named flesh interfaces, created by subjecting people to large doses of LSD. Flesh interfaces were first created in 1944, and research about them was abandoned around the year of 2020. The closest we can get to a definition of a flesh interface comes from, of course, Mother Horseeyes, although this doesn't really answer all the questions, and instead it adds more questions. MHE writes, "Obviously, I can't define a flesh interface in terms of purpose or composition or mechanism. I can only list the various phenomena which are related to them. Chief among these is the creation of an incident zone wherein objects are spontaneously segmented, i.e. parts of the objects simply disappear, yet the objects continue to behave as if the missing parts are still present. Also, you see complex tunnels created in the earth. These have been termed ant farms. In undersea surfaces, you get chitinous cruciform organisms. These sui generis organisms are thought to be the result of evolutionary processes which took place in an environment other than Earth. This is speculation, but in this case, I agree with it. Then there have been the giant metallic cylinders which appear and experience continuous spontaneous segmentation. These are usually at least 10 meters in diameter, but can get much larger, and only occur in very large interfaces, i.e. portals. Beyond this, the phenomena are two various dimensions and different for each interface. So these flesh interfaces are portals, but portals to where exactly? Also, these interfaces have severe effects on the reality around it. Wherever they appear, there is an incident zone where many objects get metaphysically sliced to ribbons with their meat sac tubes still all doing their various meat sac tube activities. Also, depending on where these flesh interfaces take place, there are other phenomena that will follow their creation, such as the subterranean esophagi or the chitinous cruciform organisms, which are most likely a cross-shaped arthropod creature. I will cover the different scenarios more in detail in another video about this. When humans saw this big meaty tube, they were like, yo, we gotta crawl through this to the other side and see where it goes. Immediately wiggling my way inside wouldn't be my first inclination if we discovered a giant metaphysical fleshlight, but whatever, go ham. After sending some people through the interface, they found that they were likely extra-dimensional travel ports. Although, going through these portals, you're almost certain to undergo encasement. MHE describes encasement in the following passage. We sent Jingles. By the way, Jingles is a human child. Yes, really, they named an 8-year-old human child Jingles like a goddamn hairless cat into the flesh interface, and an object returned 2 minutes later. It was a large organic sac lined with veins vaguely resembling a human lung, around 4 feet long. We x-rayed it and saw the skeleton inside and cut it open. Jingles was inside, naked, and covered with blood, with no hair on her head. There was an umbilical cord attached to her belly button, which was attached to a sort of placenta. We had a problem with the surgeons trying to harm her. It was later realized that her blood, the blood from the sac, had high concentrations of an exotic LSD analog. It was getting absorbed through the skin. The placenta was like an LSD factory, pumping out millions of doses. This particular blend made people pretty violent, so we had to put on containment suits. Jingle's skin was flawless, like a newborn's. No wrinkles on the back of her neck, no wrinkles on her palms except the major ones. She had the form of an 8-year-old girl, but seemed a lot newer. We did MRIs on her bone plates and found that they were highly undeveloped, as if she was a newborn. We wondered, is this really Jingles, or some kind of clone? What sort of apparatus could have possibly produced this clone, and why? After a day of observation, she awoke. We weren't sure if her mind was still there. Perhaps she had been wiped clean, so we waited, asking her questions. At first, her behavior was like that of an infant, just smiling and gurgling and clasping her hands. It was pretty eerie, seeing that kind of behavior from an 8-year-old. Really, it was pretty eerie looking at her at all. Her skin was so pure and glowing, she looked like an absolute angel. Well, anyways, after a while she started babbling, saying little phrases, and in a matter of hours, she seemed to progress through the various stages of development, her sentence structure and awareness becoming more and more sophisticated. As soon as she could understand sentences, we started questioning her again. Who was she? She said her name. She knew her past. This wasn't a blank clone. This may or may not have been the original girl, but she seemed to have the same mind as the original. So then we asked her the question we wanted to know. The question that had plagued us for years. The question that had led us, in the face of all humanity and morality, to send a child into a living apparatus of death. What did you see? What's on the other side? Her expression grew thoughtful. She was a thoughtful, bright girl. We chose her for her intelligence. So young and so bright, and we just threw her. Anyway, she thought about the question, and it seemed then that we would finally get an answer. A real answer. I remember the sense of anticipation in the room. It was like nothing I've ever felt before or since. Remember, I quit the program that day, so I was never able to question another subject. Anyway, she said to us, inside the chamber, I started to feel drowsy. Everything changed, and I knew what I saw. I had seen it before, I said to myself. This is like the room in Grammy's house, the quiet room. We asked her what she meant by this. She replied with these words, her final words before she simply stopped living and sat there dead with her eyes on us. She said, "Come onto these yellow sands." It seems that the knowledge to be gained from exploration of these realms is limited, because first off, we cannot send any non-biological matter through, and second off, apparently the human brain is not capable of retaining much information about stuff when encased in a gland that continually saturates the entire body with one of the most powerful mind-altering substances on the planet. That's some shoddy hardware if I've ever seen it. It appears that whatever dimension or location the flesh interface sends the subject to is nothing like that of our home. Maybe that weird acid gland engulfs them and turns them into a fetus, or they somehow develop all that crap on their own in the other dimension. But likely, the realm is unfathomable in the senses that make up the human experience. How this works or why this happens is still yet unknown, but avoiding or somehow circumventing this encasement process is vital to figuring out how to study these anomalies. There is much more to this story. Mother Horse-Eyes has an extensive catalog of this fantastically gut-wrenching literature, and there's no way I could cover it all in one video. Personally, I think a deep dive on this topic would be a great series, so if you want to see me dive deeper into the Mother Horse-Eyes narrative and who the author is, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with all notifications enabled so I know people want more.